All right. Hi, Aaron. Welcome to today's episode. Aaron is the head of growth in Study.ai, and we will today talk about how we use AI to prevent revenue churn. That's something interesting that we felt it be worth talking because a lot of times the discussion happens about growing the top line using AI, and we know so many tools with the likes of Clay and all are in the market, but we don't discuss much about how to prevent revenue churn using AI. And that's what going to be the today's discussion. Hopefully it'll be a fun one and there's a lot to unpack. So Aaron, welcome to the episode. And do you want to first tell a little bit about your role and then we'll jump into the tricks?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity to be on the show. I always love a chance to talk all things revenue. For the last 7 years, I was the chief revenue officer at a training and education space in the customer success industry. And customer success's first goal is to really protect the growth, the GRR of the business, the gross revenue retention. And so I've been thinking this way for a long time. So when I was approached about being on a revenue focused podcast, of course, that's my take on it. Now, as the head of growth at Sturdy.ai, I'm operating the top of our funnel. I'm doing awareness and outreach and demand gen and nurturing the relationships all the way through to deal close, of course. But what our product does is protects GRR, grows NRR, and then provides product insights. And I can speak a little bit about that. But in this world of a subscription pricing model, repeatable revenue models are as a service is becoming more and more prevalent in every industry. Protecting that repeatable recurring revenue should be first and foremost. You can't fill the top of the funnel enough if the hole at the bottom is too big. And
Yeah,
so I'm excited to talk about this with you today. Thanks for the chance to be on the show.
yes. And I'll just take a quick break. I have Shohini with me. She is from the
Hello.
GTM team. Hi, Shohini. So yeah, we'll together have the conversation. And yeah, so back to that. And one thing that as you mentioned, the leaky bucket is a big problem. As the customer acquisition cost increases, unless you can prevent the leaky bucket, there is no point in acquiring more customers and losing at the same velocity. Yeah, completely to your point. Yeah, agree. So let's get started with some specific techniques. Maybe we can discuss 2, 3 techniques that you believe that where we can use AI to reduce the revenue churn. And yeah, let's get started with the first one. What do you have, or which one you want to discuss first?
Yeah, sure. When I think of AI in the post-sale world and the customer relationship management, there's a few different sort of areas to look at. First is exactly revenue retention and ensuring that the renewal process becomes a natural byproduct of the customer's life cycle. And how we do that is by defining what success is for our customer, making sure they get that, and then making sure they know that they've got that. If I'm getting what I expect in terms of value proposition from your products and services, I'm going to want to renew. And then from there, we can look at how to use AI to actually grow those accounts through typically cross sell, but sometimes possibly upsell. And I can define how I look at the two of those different, but both of those being considered part of your expansion dollars. And there's different signals that your customers will give you that there are AI tools like Sturdy, for example, that can pick those up and surface those as insights so that we can act upon those. And then the third area that's really specific to post-sale customer relationship management, yet still helps the top of the funnel with net new logo acquisition, go to market, product market fit, is the voice of the customer and really getting insightful insights, meaningful insights from your customers about your products and services in ways that they would like to see it work differently or better or more purpose built for a specific use case, et cetera, and being able to pick up on those so that what you're continuing to build has a firmer and firmer product market fit over time. And there's all this we consider it data at Sturdy. Every customer conversation. And these are emails, these are Zoom and Gong transcripts, these are chat interactions, these are support tickets, all omni-channel, all the different ways we communicate. We look at that as a untapped data source in most businesses. And if we can use the right type of natural language or narrow language models, excuse me, we can signal up things like budget issues, cancellation requests, or risk. Contract request is a perfect one, right? A customer asks for a copy of their contract. If you're a leader in an account management function or a customer success function or even account executive possibly, that should make your skin crawl. That's a horrible sign. But if they ask support for it, support very well may just be like email billing and they'll get that for you without asking any questions about and really getting into that second and third level. That's an example of if you have the right kind of AI tooling, it can notice that and then trigger an action to be taken against that to understand the why. Like it may not be a bad thing. It might not. Maybe they got a new lawyer on their side, or maybe they just lost a copy of it, or there could be a million reasons it's not a churn risk, but more times than not, it is. It means they're shopping you around. And especially when you look at product usage, so much of my career has been in SaaS where you've got insights into how people use your products and services. Not every industry has that, but with a lot of software as a service products, they do. Even that doesn't necessarily give you an indication of churn because I might be spinning up your competition behind the scenes and I have to use you until the day I cut over. If I'm moving CRMs, for example, or human capital management products where I use them for payroll. I'm not going to not pay my team while I'm switching over to the new payroll system. I'm going to bring up the new one on the back and I'm going to use you until the day I don't renew and away I go. Product usage wouldn't be a signal for me. I wouldn't be able to use that to know there's a churn risk, but a contract request certainly could be. And so just having the right kinds of tools that are able to listen at scale, like we can't put enough humans to read every email and every chat and everything to pick up all the different signals, outages, security risks, general unhappiness and sentiment. There's a ton of tools out there that monitor that. Value issues. Do they feel like they've been receiving the value that they've been looking for? Like all of these are different signals that we have. And there's other products out there that do it too. But my point is using AI to be able to do things at scale, in this case, listen, and so that it then frees up the time for the humans to do the human things of account management, customer success, account exec, whatever the role, marketing, go to market, you name it. That's where AI fits in. I was on a podcast a few weeks ago about this as well. And I mentioned that a couple of years ago on a conference, I had heard AI is not going to replace customer success managers, but AI will replace customer success managers who don't have AI. And I think that's true with almost any role. What it is allowing us to do is the strategic and the more human side of the role. And it allows us to relieve ourselves of the mundane data entry. Jira tickets is a perfect one. I can come to another one on that when we get there. But those are some ways that we could look at revenue protection. And in this economy, as net new becomes more and more difficult, like we've seen since 2022, recurring revenue becomes king, right? We have to be able to first retain the revenue that we already have earned. Then we can talk about ways to look at growing it and things like that. And we can talk about that also. But at the beginning of the day, we've got to keep what we've got. You can't grow what you don't have.
True. And great overview. I'll probably ask you to give one or two concrete signal examples. Maybe pick one, your favorite signal that you believe is a strong indicator of churn. And if you can explain how we can actually mine that signal, how to interpret, and then what action we can take. Just one signal, just to be a little specific.
Yeah. What we at Sturdy, how we look at it isn't a matter of one signal or two signals. It's about creating recipes of signals. And so what we have are 30 vector-based language models that are looking for one signal each. And we can tie those together into a recipe. So things like contract request, maybe not, maybe on its own, maybe or maybe not on its own is something we want to look into. Typically it is. Value issue may or may not be, but value issue with something like general unhappiness. Now we're getting more acute and we can hone it in. And so we have these language models that will take all of this unstructured text-based data, conversations, but we look at it as data, unmined, untapped data. About 80 to 90% of your company's data relative to your customers is found in that, by the way, email, support tickets, et cetera, what they're saying directly. And so if we can mine through that and create recipes of specific things together, then we can get to these acute examples. So general unhappiness, there's a ton of sentiment out there, tools that'll monitor customer sentiment. That in itself is one thing that's not important. But what I always want to know is why? What made them unhappy? Is it a value issue? Is it because you had a price increase? That would be another one that we would want to look at from a revenue protection perspective. Price increase on its own probably doesn't mean anything. It just means that, hey, you raised the rates and they said something in an email. But price increase with a contract request with general unhappiness, now we're onto something and we can get to acute specific instances that we want to try to get out ahead of. And that's what it's all about, is being predictive. And the best breadcrumbs for your prediction are found in what your customers are saying in their everyday communications with you. And that's where I think AI is differentiated from other types of customer relationship management products that we've seen. You've had the CRMs forever. Now you got the CSPs in the customer success space, the churn zeros, et cetera. All of those had specific use case. You got surveys, you got NPS, you got all these different ways, right? CSAT, customer effort survey, all the different scores and health scores and all of that, always trying to be predictive, but none of it was taken directly from the customer's mouth. And that's because it's just hard. It's nearly impossible without some AI to be able to lean into that. You just, like I said, you just can't put enough people on it to look at every single line of communication with every customer across all the players in your business. And that's what AI allows us to do. It's an incredibly powerful tool to allow us to focus on, in this case, predicting and getting out ahead of churn, is what we're talking about here today, before it's too late, right? Otherwise, like, how do we get visibility? If I'm a leader, I typically don't get visibility into an email chain with an unhappy customer who's expressing some budget issue or something until it's too late, right? Like, how I get it is that they forward me the email after something happens that makes me aware of it. And I'm like, wait, I never saw that. Can you send me that email? That's where AI and products like Sturdy can really step in and assist, is around recognizing that and surfacing it up before it's too late, getting out ahead of it almost in real time. Yeah, so that's how we look at it, though. It's not like specific. It's really more of a recipe of, and it's vector based. It's not Boolean search. It doesn't have to match word for word. It understands contextual cues. We've run over 100 million B2B business conversations through our 30 language models over the last 5 years to train these things so that they know what to look for. And now, after all that work, they're incredibly accurate at actually identifying based on those contextual cues. Just like we would if we were a human reading it. They're not going to say, I want a copy of my contract. They might say, when do we renew again? Or something like that. That, if your AI and your tooling is good enough, then it should be able to decipher, oh, that's a contract request type of question. And I'm going to signal that up so someone can look into it.
So, yeah, makes complete sense. Can you give us some idea from the data that you have seen? You clearly mentioned about the contract. I think you mentioned about pricing. Any other interesting example that you have seen from the data that kind of signals that, okay, this might be a point where the customer might churn?
There's a couple. Yeah, there's some that I really like. Like one of them is an apology signal. Are we apologizing over and over again? And maybe it's just that, hey, I'm sorry I'm late to the call. I've been on back to backs. I'm sorry I'm 5 minutes late. But if that's happening at some volume of amount of times per week, month, quarter, whatever, it's a signal of something not being like, why are you late to every meeting? Why, even if that's all you're apologizing for, that in itself is an interesting one. And it needs to be bi-directional too. And that's what our product can recognize that. So it knows whether we're saying it to the customer or the customer saying it to us. Because like apology, for example, I don't necessarily need to know if the customer's apologizing to us, maybe, but probably it's probably not a big deal. But if we're overly apologizing to them, again, we need to know that, identify that so we can figure out why, really get to the why behind that. Another one that I love as a past head of customer success, we call it the laptop thrower. It's response lag. So that's when we say, I'll get back to you on Friday with your answer. And then Monday, the customer emails me back and says, hey, I never heard. What's the deal? That would fire response lag. If that happens once a blue moon, it's probably not that big of a deal. But if it happens again to some level of volume, that's when you throw the laptop. You're like, we're not getting back, we're not upholding our commitments to the customers. And so that's another area where AI can be incredibly powerful, both at the top of the funnel and the bottom. If it can identify these types of signals, we can use those for coaching. I can dig into that with my team and making them better at whatever their role is, whether it's SDR, BDR, AM, AE, you name it. I can get insights into how we communicate and are we, again, upholding our commitments to the customer, because all of that goes into the customer experience. It adds friction that then creates possible churn risk. It all depends on a lot of different factors, but those are a couple of kind of other ones that I really like as a head of CS and a customer success practitioner for the last 9 years now. I was 2016 when I got my first head of CS job to fix the churn problem at a SaaS company that couldn't grow. They had a 40% year over year churn rate. And so they hired me in. I had been working in customer support, technical account management for 20 years. They hired me on as the head of customer success. I came in on my first day and I went to Google and I typed in, what is customer success? Now that I've got this job, I got to figure out what this thing is, right? But I got that job to again, fix the leaky bucket or the hole in the bucket, because without that, it didn't matter how much they filled in the top. It was all just falling out at the bottom. But anyway, but yeah, in the last 9, 10 years of this stuff, those are some that come to mind. Others would be like how to, confusion, general things like that. Are they asking how to do basic stuff? Maybe our knowledge management system needs to be beefed up. It all lends itself to understanding what we could do to improve the customer experience, either at the digital self-guided level or all the way up to the high touch. We're just not getting back to people in time, or we're showing up to meetings late, or whatever the kind of situation behind the scenes is.
All right. And what are the channels would you recommend to have an eye on, some sort of a monitor on? Email, customers support? Is it going to be all the social media channels also, like people are discussing about, though I don't think you can get the account name specifically, so it has to be internal channels. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what we do at Sturdy is completely anonymize all of the incoming data so that we're completely SOC 2, GDPR, HIPAA compliant. And so basically we've built box to box integrations. These aren't through Zapier or anything, into the main players in most tech stacks. So Outlook and Gmail, those are the two that we can plug into. Zendesk, Salesforce, HubSpot. These are all purpose-built specific integrations. And in there, we strip out all of the personally identifiable information while still providing entity resolution back to the CRM. So we can make sense in the UI of who's who, what account, what person is saying what, et cetera. But we don't get any of that information because we don't need any of that to find general confusion or discounting or any of the signals that I was talking about before. And so that was the first hurdle we had to overcome back in 2020, when we were building this thing out. We've invested only in product and a little bit of marketing for the last 5 years. We really have just tried to find that fit with that product market fit. Now we're in a full go-to-market motion. I'm the first sales hire that they brought on at the beginning of this year to do things like this, just help people know we exist. That's where we're at right now. Awareness, a little demand gen, and hopefully we can get this thing up and running. And so anyway, the email is we call it the honey hole of data. It is the untapped resource. Even if all your emails are ending up in your Salesforce, making sense of what's actually being said in there, even with Einstein and some of the other products, is really difficult because they're not and so it takes forever for these language models, these narrow language models, to make sense of it, so that then you can slap on top of GPT and use the large language models to interact with it. And so that's where 5 years ago, we got started with, like I said, we've to this point over 100 million B2B customer conversations, because that's really where we see the majority of these breadcrumbs for this predictability that just get missed. Then you've got support tickets. That's another one. Slack is one. We're seeing this being used more and more with customers, right?
True.
So we can integrate into Slack, so we can find a signal. We can fire a notification in a Slack channel. No big deal. That makes sense. But what we found was, oh my God, these B2B companies are setting up external Slack channels with their customers and using that as their collaboration space. And so we actually want to be able to monitor that. Like, Slack is damn near impossible to make sense of what's in it. Those feeds get so buried, everything gets so buried. And so having AI be able to comb through it, so you could go to an AI product and type in, what are the customers that have expressed unhappiness in the last 7 days? And it can look through all of the customer channels and all of your Slack, all of your email, all of your support tickets, everything, and surface that up to you in the UI. That's stuff that just, until recently, this was a pipe dream until we had the right kind of language models. But so that's really the trick, is getting them trained. And that's where we have an advantage in that ours are pre-trained, pre-built, but then they're single instance. And your language models are yours, and they will learn from your interactions, not our other customers at Sturdy. It's almost like a single tenant architecture, which is really cool. So you get value really quick because they've been pre-trained, and then it just gets better and better over time as it refines to your competitors, your SKUs, your unique vernacular of your business and your clients, et cetera. So anybody who's looking for something in the AI world like that, like, we aren't the interaction AI agent like you see so many of them. What we really are is a middle layer of data insights. That's what we're. We're a data company at our core. Most of our clients don't even, after a couple of months, they don't even log into our product anymore. We don't that's not the use case. It's really designed to listen to everything, find apply the intelligence to it, and then surface it up to whatever systems you're already operating within. And that's what I love about what we do. There's a couple things for people out there. Understand what kind of AI you're talking about. And I'd love to get into that too. There's the history of AI. There's 4 books or revelations of it, if you will, and we can go through that. But understand what you're dealing with, what kind of AI, and don't assume that all AI is ChatGPT or a version of it. There's a whole lot of different ways to use AI out there, and then make sure that it's pre-trained. It's coming out of the box with its own understanding and learning behind it, so that you don't have to train it from day one, because then you're looking at a very long ramp up time until you're going to get value from it. That's what it's all about, right? Is value realization.
And how do you want the leaders, CS leaders, to think about taking an action on that? So is it going to be like a daily report? Is it going to be a weekly report? Is it going to be a monthly report? Because sometimes it's too much of intelligence is a analysis paralysis scenario where nobody knows what to do with the data, what to do with the insight. So what's the cadence that you have seen working well? Is it going to be weekly, monthly, or how does it?
Yeah, that's a good point, that it can become too much noise, right? If I'm looking for too much stuff, then what do I do? Where do I begin? And so it's really going to depend on the type, in this case, of signal that we're talking about. Certain ones I'm going to want to jump on immediately. like response lag, for example, I probably don't have to jump on it immediately if I'm a leader. I probably want to get that in a summary so I can use it as a coaching in my one-on-one next week or once a month. Here's how many times we saw that you had response lag this month, something like that, right? That's a less urgent one as opposed to contract request, right? When that one fires, I want that to be almost instantaneous. Whoa, why? Why do they want their contract? And then moving on to kind of the next beyond churn prevention, but into like growth, is that it's not all doom and gloom. Like we've got expansion opportunities when they're saying things about pain points that we have solutions for. We want to identify that and surface that up. That would be one to jump on immediately. Advocacy plays where they talk about how satisfied, how much value they've gotten. Their ROI is off the charts. We're just so delighted that we brought Sturdy in. That'll fire a happy signal. That we want to put into our customer lifecycle marketing motions. Or maybe it fires over to marketing to reach out to, or the CSM or the AE or whatever your business looks like and however it works. Someone should be reaching out and saying, hey, can we get you on a G2 review? Can we get you on a testimonial? Can I just record you for 30 seconds saying that so that we can reuse it? Like whatever lightweight things you do, or big Herculean case studies and all this stuff, whatever you do for advocacy, but identifying who the advocates are. That's huge. Like we've all been at companies that get advocate, Advocate, not exhaustion, fatigue, advocacy fatigue, referral fatigue, right? We always have to ask the same 6 customers for testimonials. And so the more of those advocates that we can identify, the less fatigue they're each going to feel. Plus, we can get more nuanced. And now this plays right into your typical audience, top of funnel stuff, right? I'm going to use those to go generate net new leads through demand gen awareness, speaking about value propositions and use cases that are specific to this ICP in that total addressable market. And the more refined I can get with that, the more impactful it's going to be for my marketing teams and my go-to-market teams. It's just going to be more beneficial for them the more targeted it is. You got to have more of them. If you want to be targeted, you got to have, the more you have, the more targeted you can become with those. And so it's not all doom and gloom and bad as well. There are revenue expansion opportunities in there too. And we believe, our hypothesis at Sturdy is that the best place to learn and find those insights is straight from what the customer is saying. And then the question is, how do you hear it and pay attention to it all? That's what a product like Sturdy allows us to do.
Yeah. So in terms of operationalizing it, do you feel that it'll be like the head of CS, again, just to be more specific, the head of CS will take a look at that as through weekly or monthly, or is there going to be some automation that will automatically take certain signals which are high priority, it'll be immediately served. Some will be categorized as this needs to be with the cadence of the marketing team. Some will be for sales team to take care. So will there be some categorization around the signals? Is that how it's going
exactly.
to be?
Yeah, and that's why building those recipes is good too, so that we can get really acute and prescriptive with it. Another integration that we built is straight into Jira. And the idea here is it takes a CSM on average 3 to 5 minutes to enter a Jira ticket. If I can take that off of their plate, just the entering it, not gathering the information and any of that, but just the literal entering of the Jira ticket takes me 5 minutes. If I can take that off of their plate, I will save them hours and hours of work each year for them to now be more strategic, talking about value realization and business review, executive level communication, whatever you want them to be doing that AI cannot, that we can allow them to do that. And so what we did was built a Jira integration. So we have different signals that will fire, and it's straight from what the customer said. And then Sturdy will create the Jira ticket in the Forge platform in a holding pattern. So it's not just like all the way into engineering's workflow, but there it is for them to then kick back, deny, or accept and put into their whatever their, what is it? I want to say Tombong board, but that's not right. Their whatever systems they use to manage their product management and then their engineering resources and roadmap, et cetera. Kanban board, yeah. But so anyway, we took that off because, like, why does a person have to do that? The customer said that what they wanted it to do. Sturdy hears it, and it'll create that Jira ticket automatically. Like, that's one that would be instantaneous versus like more of a executive level review of how many times we missed response lag or something like that from a coaching perspective. So from an operational perspective, yes, there's going to be differences based on the scenarios and whether they're good, bad, or ugly, or in this case, a product insight. It really is going to depend on whether it's instantaneously driven and alerted, or we can sum it up into a weekly report or something like that.
All right. Yeah. I think we're at the top of the slot. We covered a lot of ground. I just want to ask last question, which is, apart from revenue churn, any other AI trend that you're super bullish in 2025 around revenue space?
Generally speaking, I looked at it this way. AI requires us to reframe how we work and how we view the capabilities of technology in our daily behavior, as opposed to anything else in the past. When the cloud was new, some people were early adopters, others, I was in healthcare tech at that point, they were super laggard. They thought, we'll never go to the cloud. That's insane. Like, we too much security risk, right? And eventually, 20 years later, everybody's in the cloud. But we didn't really have to change how we interacted with technology. We didn't have to change how we thought. AI is forcing us to do that. It's forcing us to think differently and use technology differently, especially on the agent assistant kind of side, like the chats and the GPTs, et cetera. Using that effectively as your own personal agent or assistant, I should say, it's a different thing. We've just never had that. And so we need to reframe our minds around how we interact with it and what's possible with it so that we can leverage it the most effectively. Whatever you do, whether it's top of funnel or bottom of funnel or your leader or an individual contributor, there is a place for AI in your world. It's just a matter of being open to reframing. It's a very powerful tool, and it is at the end of the day just a tool, but it's a new type of tool. There's stuff that we can do with it that we've never been able to do before. And what that should allow us to do is open up more time to do the things that are human. That's the beauty of AI, is it allows humans to be human and spend time with other humans. And that's never going anywhere. And so that's what AI might replace humans without AI, but it's not going to replace humans with AI, right? At the end of the day, we make business decisions based on personal preference, and that comes down to a relationship. Typically speaking, if we're talking B2B, certainly at the enterprise level, that comes down to people. And so at the end of the day, all of this machines, and we're going to all work for the machines. Terminator 2 is on the way, right? Skynet's taking over. At the end of the day, it's all about the people.
True. So agents, yeah. No wonder Salesforce and HubSpot, these guys are doubling down, tripling down on agents. So yeah, we're going to all have agents helping us with our workflows. All right. It was super fun having you, Aaron. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of things to unpack for the community. It's a very relatively new space and a lot of people don't think about it. There's a lot of talk about top of the funnel signals and intent data and so on. But on the churn side, there are a lot of interesting things that can be done. I think there's the possibilities are endless. And yeah, would encourage people to go and look into the content and the materials of study. All right. Thanks a lot and see you soon.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show. Thanks a lot.